Edward presents on a variety of topics, including educational technology at local and national conferences. His experiences include student-led staff development, I mean like little student-led, which is very cool, coordinating tutoring experiences between children who are over 100 miles apart, and facilitating project-based learning for students. In 2016, Edward received the meritorious Edwin Carr Fellowship for the Department of Elementary and Bilingual Education at Cal State Fullerton for his work with educational technology. Please join me in welcoming and thanking Edward for his contribution to today's event.
All right, everybody, thank you for coming in today. I'm pretty excited to be here. I actually got my undergrad here at Cal State Bakersfield, and now I'm kind of back at home. Kind of a bit diverse of a crowd. Could I have everybody who is currently in the classroom give me 2 claps? Everybody who is on their way to finding themselves in the classroom. And all the kids, I saw a lot of kids, I didn't expect them. Give me 2 claps. 2 loud claps from all the kids, let's go. A couple of them, if you are under 15, give me a woohoo! Woohoo! All right, so we have a few of them. And it was kind of I had an introduction going, but yesterday something happened that really brought home to me why exactly we're actually here today. And I'm in my class. I consider myself to be the 21st century teacher. We're blogging, we have these 3D models we're creating, we did VR, we're putting all these things up in our portfolio. And one of my students, a 6th grade boy, he says, Mr. Gonzalez, could I put H2O Delirious on my portfolio? And I said, no, you can't put any music on. He said, no, he's not a singer, he's a gamer. And I said, a gamer? How do you know about this gamer guy? He's on YouTube. And I said, so, I don't know, I don't think you should put him on there. He said, he's my favorite person in the world. And then about 4 or 5 other kids jump in and they say, no, he's really awesome, and he has these videos and compilations just about his laugh. And I said, I have no idea what you kids are talking about. And he looks at me and he says, Mr. Gonzalez, it's because we were born in the 21st century. And you were born in, I don't know what they call your century. And I realized it hit me. Even though I consider myself to be a 21st century teacher, these kids are coming in with totally different experiences that we don't expect, and they're actually much more connected at a level that we ourselves haven't had the opportunity to be connected. What strikes me the most is that maybe in different generations we really promoted creating art, creating projects, being crafty. These kids have the opportunity to do that, but they have the opportunity to do that leveraging technology, and that is something very powerful that they could use in the classroom. One of the defining pieces, I think, when it comes to kids in the classroom is that they're actually publishing on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, and those publishings, they take the form of an Instagram or a Snapchat. I'm sure plenty of you are publishing right now. So the big problem, or not the problem, but the issue is, how can we actually leverage this creativity, the power that these kids have in our actual classrooms? Well,
There you go.
so, yeah. My primary objectives today are that I want you to take away the idea, the understanding that kids have to have the opportunity to work as active creators in the classroom. All the kids require this. This isn't just when the student finishes early, he gets to create. This is every student needs that opportunity to actually create. The other piece that I really want you to take home is the understanding that this helps us close the achievement gap. What this really means is that when we teach, like in the regular traditional way, our high students, they move on. Our middle students, you help them out a little bit extra, and they either make it on their own or they move on. And our lowest students, they struggle, and sometimes we don't get them there. And kind of the dirty secret in education, and I've seen it because I've worked at intervention at the 9th grade level, was that many students who fall behind, they never quite catch up, and they stay there. And on a daily basis, I would see 90 or so kids who never made it past 5th, 6th grade level. And these kids have things to contribute, they have things to share, and they actually, they can be a positive force in the school, and they too need the opportunity to create. So for today, what I think, what this applies for everybody is that Your roles, whether it's teaching in the classroom or even as kids, your role is to look at things in a scientific way and in an artistic way, to understand that you actually have both of those pieces. As the teacher, those of you who are in the credentialing program, raise your hand if you're in the credentialing program right now. Everything you're getting right now is basically your science training. You're understanding the standards, you're understanding how you're going to deliver your lessons, you're understanding how to measure what all these kids are learning. But the big role, the important role that you're going to learn when you get out into the field is the role of actually being an artist. And everybody who's going to be sharing with you, they've already made it past the only scientist piece to actually being scientist and artist in the classroom. And the reason is because when you start walking around and seeing what every teacher's making and creating, you're going to be excited and you're going to think, this is what I want to be doing. This is what I want to do in my class. This is what all the kids should be learning. But when you get into the practice part, you start having kind of little doubts that start popping up. You might start thinking, well, what about my administration? I don't think that's an activity I could do on a Monday. I don't have the money to do that. But I don't think that's possible on a Friday. Can I do that on a Wednesday? Or Wednesday's a short day. And you have all of these little doubts, and you self-sabotage yourself before you get there. And not everybody, but that's typically what goes on with me. So when you start looking at it through your different lenses, and you look at it through your artistic lens, you realize that all those constraints, they're not really constraints. They're actually just a little frame. And within the frame, you can fit everything possible. Again, the artist in you recognizes that in the frame you can fit multiple different paintings, different drawings. You can fit something like you can fit the Mona Lisa in there. You can fit work by Frida Kahlo. You can fit Vincent van Gogh. And all these artists were constricted by specific constraints, but they were able to create these masterpieces. And it's actually the most memorable lessons that teachers create that kids actually hold on to them, and they remember for years and years. As a 9th grade teacher, I would have kids come and tell me, oh, my 4th grade teacher, she did amazing things, she did great things. My 5th grade teacher was the best teacher. My favorite activity was the California missions activity. And these are all activities that have pretty rigid constraints. For something like the California missions activity, first of all, it has to be a mission that you're studying. It has to be turned in by a certain amount of time, and if you didn't have those constraints, you wouldn't have that project. You couldn't turn in a Disneyland project. You couldn't turn it in during the summer because no one would see it. And you have to start understanding how all those little pieces work. So I think where I was able to learn the most was under a teacher or under a principal who acted as a mentor for me. And raise your hand if you've had a mentor so far in your program or in your career. Go ahead and raise your hand, show of hands if you've had a good mentor or a mentor in general. A mentor is powerful. A mentor will literally change your life and your way of thinking. But you as a teacher, whether you're new in the class or whether you've been there for a while, you have to actually accept the mentor as your mentor. And I was kind of always the person that I kind of like to do what I want. And I go into this interview and I knew I was looking for something different. I knew that there was more to education, that there was more powerful ways to use technology. And this gentleman, his name is Dr. Joe Dixon, he tells me, you know how to make animation, you know how to make videos, you know how to do all these things, but I want you to make it teaching these kids how to do science and history, 7th and 8th grade, and then a block in the day for English. And the first thing that went through my mind was, wow, that's really powerful. He wants these kids to actually create in the class. And then the second thing was, oh my goodness, that is so many lessons. I have no idea how I'm going to be able to run that. But it was scary. I jump into it. I accept that, you know what, this guy's going to use me as his tool, and let's see where it takes me. And it was amazing. It was powerful. I couldn't quite understand how his mind was working, but everything that he said, I just kind of went with it. And we start making science festivals, and he adds these other little extra components to it that I had never heard through my own credentialing program. He said, not only are you teaching the kids to make that, I want the kids to teach other kids to do it. And that for me was mind-blowing. Like, somehow I'm supposed to transfer it to these students who are going to transfer it to other students. And we went ahead and did that, and we actually started rolling out technology at our K through 8 school using little technology teams. And they started making film festivals that were based on physical science concepts. We actually had another film festival that was based just on history. We had students start creating 3D models based on historical areas and trying to tie it to the standards. But what stood out to me the most as we're going through it is that every new piece that we threw out was like a net, and every net caught more kids. So where usually you would have the student who was, oh, he's my high reader. She's the one that's really good at math. She's great at science. Now all of a sudden you had, he's actually really good at animating. Oh, he does these great 3D models. You know what? I think that she has the best portfolio or the best website in the class. And this was powerful because it started evening out the playing field. And you had more kids being represented. And the major strength that we had was that we kept trying to tie this to what the students were supposed to be learning. And we went all out. We started doing the 21st Century Museum. This was Drayton Hall. It's a plantation out in South Carolina. We're a school out in the country, and we're trying to figure out, well, how are we going to give these kids some real experiences? And then we actually get one of the curators from the museum to Skype into our class and talk to the kids about what's going on at the plantation. We set up 2 different dioramas, and then kids started taking it further. They started making the 3D models, and now we have all of these things being represented in different modalities. But a new piece was introduced to me, which was when these kids are creating, let's have them create from the angle that they're going to teach it to another kid. So we started looking at it more as they're not just creating, they're curriculum designers. And their curriculum, and what curriculum is more authentic than the curriculum being created by the kids in these schools? And they furthermore took it further, and we had something like 80 out of 90 kids actively posting to their own blogs and putting their assignments up there weekly. And then we finally hit what was kind of the holy grail. At the beginning of the year, when he had hired me, he said, I want these kids making apps too. And apps for me was too hard. I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get them to do that? But at the end of the year, sure enough, they create this little virtual environment. We put it into these little apps, and now at that point, these kids had surpassed me. And this was 7th and 8th grade kids, and I realized, they actually are smarter than me, and I was humbled because I didn't believe him when he said, these kids can do things that are impressive. They can do things better than we can do, and I didn't want to believe that because at that point I wanted to be the maker and I wanted to be the creator, and I liked doing my lesson plans and I liked being in charge and being in control. But he taught me a lesson. So I kind of look at it as. I kind of looked at it as myself being humbled by kind of like Mickey in The Sorcerer's Apprentice. I had at the beginning, said, no, the kids can't do it. No, they can't make it. And I went along with it anyways. And then at the end of the day, there you go, Mr. Gonzalez. That's what these kids taught you. They taught you that they could actually do much more than you expected. So what I really need you to get, especially as you're going into teaching, is that accept the mentorship roles that people have. And people have different qualities that you can get from them. You can get organizational qualities. You can get leadership qualities in terms of how people project themselves. And as you start out in education, it's important for you to see those examples because those are people that you want to emulate. So this kind of brings me to adding another little goal. At first, I said that I wanted everybody to understand that kids should be active creators. Everybody say active creators for me.
Active creators.
Then I said I want them to be able to close or use technology to close the achievement gap. Everybody say close the achievement gap.
Close the achievement gap.
But the biggest piece that I actually got, and I urge you to try it, is have kids create for the sake of teaching other kids. And when you see kids teaching other kids, it's a life-changing experience for you. Now this is going back to my science and the science and the artist as the teacher. This is kind of my first painting, and this was my own individual painting. And it's funny because even though now I wasn't under the direction of Dr. Dixon, I was still basically singing the same songs he taught me. I was kind of like a cover singer. Anybody that knew Dr. Dixon and I, they would say, well, Dr. Dixon's the real singer, and then he's kind of the Elvis impersonator. But I'm now at the 9th grade level, and I have intervention students, and we have the task of get these kids to get them to create certain indicators are saying that the group of students that you have within the next couple years are going to be dropping out, and how can we get those kids into the fold? So I get these kids to start making 3D models. I get them to start making prezzies. I get them to start having their own little blogs, and I say we're going to be teaching other kids around our district how to use these, and you're going to enjoy the experience. And here comes my first big frame and my first big constraint, which was nobody let our kids go to the school. And this was a problem, because now I have my whole little tech team here trained, and we have nobody to teach, and the kids start getting kind of sad about the situation. Say, Mr. Gonzalez, I thought we were going to go teach these other kids how to make this and how to make that. So the power of the internet, again, the 21st century, it changes everything for us. I was able to connect with the class online down in Mission Viejo, and my students, they started teaching the kids down there, 5th and 6th graders, how to create animation via FaceTime. And it was powerful stuff, because what you see in this image is one of my girls. She's running them through how to actually set up a Go Animate scene, and then I had to teach them how to do the little tricks to teaching. So I would say, wait, if you want to move on, tell them to give you a thumbs up, and then when they give you their thumbs up, you're ready to move on. And the kids immediately, they start getting a little bit out of it. They start saying, oh, it's harder to teach. I don't think he was paying attention. And I'm like, welcome to my world. And so it really is fun. It's an empowering feeling for them. But a couple of things happened here that really drove the point home for me of what was going on. One of them was that they had to not only make, but they had to feel empowered to actually teach other children and share the knowledge that they had. Because a maker without the audience, it's tough. But when you get people, when you get the audience, when you get that feeling of being useful, it works wonders for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw out a quick a little caveat to this, because I had someone tell me, see, this is how teaching is supposed to be. Kids are teaching kids, and they're learning how to do it all on their own, and they're making a difference. But that's not how this worked, because I said this was my intervention class, and how it actually had started, which was which I hope you understand makes you can't do everything the same way for every student. So how it started is I went into the class and I said, we're going to be teaching kids how to use technology. And then one of the kids gets up and he had some choice words for me, and he said, that's why I don't like teaching, that's why I don't like school, that's why I don't like teaching. You're trying to make me to do your job now, and you're going to get your, and am I going to get your paycheck for teaching those little kids? And so there was my frame. My frame, now plain as day, there was these kids have a track record of certain things going on that haven't worked for them. But this was my opportunity, and my opportunity was, okay, you're going to have detention for the next 2 days. I'm going to write a referral, and this was literally the opening I was waiting for, because when he comes in for detention after school, sit down. We're going to start working on this Prezi, and then I start teaching him how to do the Prezi, and then the next day he comes in again, his head down. Now we're going to teach you how to make a Prezi for math, and then he starts doing his Prezi for math. Okay, this is your last day of detention, but I won't give you the referral if you teach another kid how to make this tomorrow. And so then we go back into class the next day, and I say, hey, remember what I said? And then he walks over dutifully, his head down, like, oh, he's making me do this. And then he goes and teaches a kid. But then the craziest thing happens. The next week, he comes back and he says, hey, do you have any other kids that I could teach how to make a present? And he wanted to go to the library now and bring some of his friends from the after-school program to work in our class and start creating their own little presentations. And it was powerful. And he became one of our first presenters. And it was what an education should be, which is it's practical, it's creative, and it's empowering, and you get to uplift the other people that are around you. By the way, how many of you actually know how to make a Prezi? How many of you have your own, or know how to make a blog or a website? 3D models? So almost everything. Can you click it for me? All right, so this is so now this is my first experiment. I'm on my own, and this experiment had to do again with my constraints. And my constraints were that they wanted me to be teaching. They wanted me to be teaching using Khan Academy. If the kids are working at their level, they'll understand the content. They can work at home. They can do all these things. And I had seen it work in the middle school, but my intervention students, they didn't like Khan Academy at all, and I felt bad because I like Mr. Sal, Mr. Sal Khan, and I enjoy his courses, but my students didn't take to it. So, almost by accident, I stumbled into a new piece. Go to the next one for me. Thanks. I stumbled into a new piece. I wonder, well, if they start making their own tutorials, will they become more engaged in the content? And sure enough, they do become more engaged when they start creating their own tutorials. And what started happening in my class was that the kids actually started translating all of their own tutorials into Spanish, into English, and into Arabic. And now all of a sudden in our class, for math, working with students who are in 9th grade, but at a 4th and 5th grade level, we're trying to make our own little digital tutorial library, and they're making all these pieces. And the whole point was, pretend you're teaching it to a 3rd grader. Pretend you're teaching it to a 4th grader. You know what? We are going to share it with a 3rd grader. We are going to share it with a 4th grader. And this became a great way to kind of take the stigma off the fact that, you know what? He's in 9th grade, but he doesn't know his ratios. He's in 9th grade, but he can't do long division. And when he's making them for a younger audience, when he's thinking that he's doing it or that she's doing it for a purpose, they're making it and they're doing it. And then the new thing happens. My student who hadn't been engaged in the classroom, and I had tried to get a hold of parents, and I never got a hold of a parent. He comes to class and he says, "My mom loved my video. She said I was really smart." I said, "What video?" And then he said, "I put it on YouTube already, Mr. Gonzalez." I was like, "No, you weren't supposed to put it on YouTube. I didn't get the permission slips." "Oh, don't worry, Mr. Gonzalez. I'll take it home." And my mom says she'll sign off on it and she'll make it. And there we are with our entire library created by the kids. So I have my new. So this became one of my bigger activities, and it was probably one of the scarier frames when you wander into a class of what's actually going to happen. And I had said, I want to teach 6th grade, and the reason I want to teach 6th grade is because I want to catch my kids before they get to high school. I want to be able to reach them much sooner. And it's the week before class starts, and we still don't have our curriculum. It's the second day before class comes. We still don't have our curriculum. And here we come, and Mr. Gonzalez, we don't have the books that we're supposed to have. Just figure out something, you'll be all right, you know, and make sure you introduce yourself to the kids. And I'm like, whoo. And there is a very, very strong frame that has shown up there. So what I had done during the summer was I had researched on how to fix my iPads. And I start going through it and I say, you know what? I bet you a 6th grader could do this. I'm going to save this lesson, and I know I'll be able to use it at some point during the year. So as soon as they said, the curriculum's not here, Mr. Gonzalez, yes, we're going to fix the iPads, first things first. So here's what you need to understand about this experience. If I would have just said, we're going to fix iPads, whoever gets to fix them, blah, 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 it would have most likely been my highest students who had the opportunity to fix it. So what I did in the first couple of days is I measured exactly where are these students in terms of reading. I leveled them up. I didn't tell them that they were by levels. I had 2 separate groups. This is one group, or this is my high group, this is my low group. These kids are competing to fix this iPad. These kids are competing to fix this iPad. And I tell them, whoever has the best presentation, whoever has the best manual, whoever gives me the lowest price, and finally, whoever actually stands up here and shares this with us and convinces everybody that they should fix the iPad is going to get to fix the iPad. And it was powerful. They had never done Prezi or slides, and they learned how to do Prezi or slides within the first week because they were setting all this stuff up. They had never... They were non-homework kids. They were not into homework. And I had kids bringing in homework saying, Mr. Gonzalez, this is the manual. I've been working on it. I showed it to my mom, and she says that she thinks I'm ready. And I said, but you didn't have any homework. No, I wanted to work on it. I wanted to win, and I wanted to do the iPad. And all the kids go up, they present, and it leaves a big impression on me because, first of all, I had never fixed the iPad, and I was kind of scared to fix the iPad on my own. But the groups that had been represented in the actual fixing of the iPad were a very low group and a very high group. And it was actually my lowest group that I feel gravitated to the activity the most. Not only were they using domain-specific language, they're telling me things like, "No, Mr. Gonzalez, you messed up. It's not actually the screen that we're replacing; it's the digitizer, Mr. Gonzalez. Come on." And this is powerful because now they're actually using the language and they're talking about it. And they go in and they fix it. And some powerful things happen. We didn't fix iPads every day, but that was the start to like an amazing experience with these kids. And I had certain students who before had not been engaged, who before did not want to participate in certain ways. They were there, they were creating, they were making things. Specifically, 2 of the students who were part of fixing the iPad were around 2nd and 3rd grade level in math and in language arts. I had one of the students who had who could not multiply with or who could not add without his fingers. He used both of his hands to add, but there he was explaining to me what are the separate connections in the iPad, how the iPad is supposed to be fixed, has his own manual, has his own presentation, and is able to actually to teach somebody how to do it. So it was cool and it was powerful, and it made me very happy to be in the profession.
Mm.
All right, so technical difficulties, 21st century, all right? So a couple of things that I want you to take away from this experience or from today is I want you to really understand that so a lot of us will say, "Oh, I'm technologically inclined," or I do this, I'm creative in this way. But everybody that goes into the field, really every human being, we all have these different gifts and these different capacities. And you can leverage whatever your talents and your gifts are. I've come across people who can speak just in such an amazing way that they engage students with just their voice. And I thought, that's the kid whisperer. I don't understand how he does that. But I've seen it, and I've seen it in urban settings. I've seen people who are very who are inclined to the theater do different activities that engage kids and bring them in. And what I want you to take out of this mostly is that you yourself have many things to offer to the profession and to teaching. It's yes, the making, yes, the technology, those are important pieces. But just like every student has their own individual thing, you as a teacher, you have the opportunity to really become your own artist in how you deliver these lessons. Because the science is how the lessons are structured. The art is how you deliver these things and how they look in your class. And it's a fine time to be a teacher. There's great opportunities, and there's a lot of people trying to make sure that as many kids out there as possible get these authentic experiences. So thank you very much for having me today, and I hope you do a lot of learning today.
Couple of quick announcements. The food and the coffee